Right. Sorry. What did you ask? What was your suggestion?
I mean, I don't know at what point is the refactoring of fields, because I see that many things of formatting and normalization of data is moved in the field and not anymore probably, or in part, in the UI persistence.
Are you talking about formats and working with types?
Yeah, yes, yes, yes.
Ah, okay.
Because
So that was the data issue.
yes, but because when we switch from translation to localization, probably we will impact that part
Right.
heavy.
Well, like looking at what ATK data does, we have the model,
Yes.
and in model we define fields, and but also we define things like captions, labels, hints. Do you see my screen, by the way?
Yes.
Okay, and that's the screen with the text, right? The one I'm scrolling.
No, not scrolling.
Okay, then it's different screen.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. So, well, like the basic question, starting from here, right? We have this add field, and we have name and address. So these are the system fields, and they are in English. They're going to rename the English. They're not going to won't be any translations in here, but we derive the name of the field from this by uppercasing it. And when we're doing that, we can also send it through the localization. So my idea was that the API, because all the objects have a link to the API somehow. So the API would have one generic method, which by default doesn't do anything, and then user can override and perform necessary substitution of the string and perhaps even handle parameters in the string.
Okay.
So the job of the model would be when it converts, for example, this into an uppercased, it it will also have to send that through localization. But also, if user defines the name of the label, I'm not sure if there are some examples in here. But if I set the label, or if I set the caption or a hint, all of these fields could go through the localization callback. The question is, should it happen automatically, or should user manually wrap all of them?
There are two method, and are specular. I mean, get caption from the model and get caption from the field. Get caption, sorry, caption.
Yes, the model has
And
also the caption.
and only this is the UI representation. I think the field literally must be not changed. I mean, the field that define the field in the table, and must define only at this point only the caption of the two objects, field and model. And after that, I think there are other things that must work with localization and not translation, and are formats and other things. Yes, yes.
There we go. So that's the situation we have at the moment. So people have to just hard code. It could be something like this as well. So you would name in this, and
That's
then
fine.
this is a global method which by default doesn't exist. So if you use it outside of the specific project, it breaks. With a single underscore, it's a different getText library. So there are two getText libraries. The built-in, which the one is in PHP, is single underscore. with 2 is the one you suggested us, right? So there are 2.
Think about static, a static or a global function.
I'm thinking about this if we use wrapper on the API, so the model would have the API set. This is a precondition to the execution of init, and then we can. So technically, when you specify the caption like this, we could send it automatically through the API. So the model can actually take care of that.
Wait, in the model, when the UI asks for caption of model and of field, calls a specific method or something like a normalization. I want to avoid this type of things. I mean, I define caption, arrow, name, and let's say we are okay. I mean, nothing changed in the actual code of all the developers, but we add internally in model when is called get caption from the model or get caption from the field, it will call a nulled method or a translation method. I think it's without change.
So what you're suggesting here is caption to hold English version, but like this. So the parameter of caption will have name, but if you call get caption, it will automatically localize.
Yes, we'll call a translator, let's say like this, a translator in the app or some other things.
Yeah, but let's call it localize, like process of log. So localize is this translation function. Or we can call translate, should it? But to translate. Okay, let's call translate. Because localize is confusing.
Yes. I think like this because in going this way, we don't have to change anything. They add a feature that doesn't change its code, and the only need to do in actual code is literally added translation in some files in the application, and obviously switch and other things.
Right. Okay, so my vision, my vision of the whole localization is that we should. So if the user specifies the parameter, like a caption like this, then we should probably assume that he already thought about localization and perhaps localized it already. But it, yeah, and well, anyway, so I'll finish my idea. So get caption doesn't call localization, doesn't translate, and also this also no. So argument caption should be automatically translate no. So user have to do it manually. But if the caption is omitted and generated from name, then we do translate, because this is like a string we come up internally. Also, if there is a maybe an error message which is internally, for example, I have throw new exception, and this is in ATK for some file PHP. So if there is anything like that, there would be usually something bad happen. So that's a string, and we can modify all the files and wrap this inside this, right, inside the method manually. But no magic. So that's one approach to everything. So we have no magic, but we simply call it if there is a hard-coded string inside ATK. So we, with this approach, we kind of solving the problem that some strings are unable to localize, but then we're not doing anything to help out user. User would have to manually wrap all the captions himself. That's one approach.
I think, but I think exception must be not translated. I mean, the core exception or problem coming from the app, because after that, if you try to search for an exception online, you will not find all the response, all the solution to that exception, because there are many versions of the exception.
Yeah,
Exception
good
is
point.
for developer.
Yes.
I think that part can be omitted.
Yeah, I think that's um, right. Okay, so that's one school of thought. The other school of thought, if we always translate things like captions, so user specifies a caption, and it would be either translated here or translated here, but in this case, the user takes our existing application and he adds a translation file, and it magically starts working in a new language. So there is no refactoring needed. It just works out of the box. So that's
And the developer must add every caption he wants to translate.
yes, but if he missed something, then it will just appear in English. But the point with this alternative approach is that framework already does translation for him, and he just needs to kind of add the necessary strings. And I think it's this approach might be better for writing extensions. If someone build um, maybe an add-on, then even if he didn't think about providing it in multiple languages, user can already translate it. So we need to figure out which of those approaches is more ATK. So which one is more ATK?
I don't know. I remain on my part. I mean, not if we practically, I have many caption that are defined from me and not accepted from the field, because the field sometimes, for example, I usually I usually define, for example, checkbox with x underscore the name of the property uh, in the database, and literally the caption that exit from there is a big X, and the property is not good, and I put the caption. From that point, I think about changing in the model the calling of the caption, and in the field the calling of the caption, to automatically translate and catch all the requests to this method, and with a flag in ATK we can store somewhere all these code, for example.
Hey, Gaurav. Philip, what do you? Yeah. So, Philip, now tell us what you think about translations. Which one you think should be? Gaurav, hold on a second. Just I want to hear what Philip and Alan are saying, and I'll ask you that after, because so you understand what I mean. We've been past that. It's we're trying to figure out how much framework is doing over the translation. currently looking at two solutions. Translates during get caption of model field, etc. All right, so Philip, what do you think? How much framework should do contribute in automated translations?
To be honest, I didn't think too much into translation yet. I mean, for me, the real interesting part is when you have also the model in, like the model data in several languages, isn't it?
You mean the data itself? That's kind of separate. We'll get into that.
Yeah. So it's, as my whole UI is German, and I never had any point where I needed translation because, I just put in German captions and so.
Yeah, but let's look at your option. Okay, so you have everything in German, and probably doesn't matter. Either we implement this or this. By default, it will not be translated.
Yeah, as I said, I unfortunately didn't put my head enough to this to contribute.
Yeah, it's okay. Alain, what do you think?
Well, I'm not sure about solution 2 because I'm not sure how this would work.
So it translates everything. So you have application right now. Any caption you have right now will be routed through app this method, which by default will not call anything, but may call, or depending on the library you use.
Okay, so you still need a translated file.
Yeah. Well, we can make it so it uses, for example, get text by default if we want to avoid dependency. But then if there is no such method, so we can actually check if the method is, if we have method like this, it's going to use it. If we have method like this, it can use it.
Okay. But either way, we need to supply those methods. Those methods needs to be available anyhow.
We need to have app method, yes. So that different parts of framework can call it, and we also need translation files for built-in strings.
This is for both solutions, right?
Yeah. So that's for both.
So I think we should have a way to set up, our own file, basically. So, which is not ATK. So there should be a way to translate that also.
Right. So you add extra translations dynamically.
Solution 1 is a must, and then solution 2 would be nice to have.
Okay. Gaurav. So tell us what framework, how far ATK should go with the existing syntax like this?
I see what we can do in very simple method. Whatever caption is ATK is about to write on a screen, it can search for that thing as in key in some translation file. If it's found, so you don't have to
So this, like get caption.
Yeah, get caption. Not even get caption. Anything which is going outside. It can be caption. It can be title field of header text or whatever.
Yeah.
Because that also needs to be translated there.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a question of approach, right? So we can either store it already translated. So that's the approach number one. When you define caption, somehow it says, oh, okay, you specifying the caption probably needs to be translated. So it translates it, and then the property stores a translated version of the caption, and this way we don't need to change anything inside ATK. But the other option is if it stores in original in English, but then it will translate on the fly.
I don't know. First option looks more better
Because there's less change.
This is less change.
Right. Okay, and we have this habit of not using getters. So in some cases, this would require refactoring. What about templates? So if there is a template right now which has a string inside it, could we?
Then we lose the essence of ATK. We will be like other frameworks who are too much dependent on templates in this system. Right
Okay.
now we can generate pretty much anything from the PHP itself.
Okay, what if we do something like this? So we can define. So that's actually a lot. You can use this. This is a legal tag in ATK add-ons, and we already have magic tags. Like for example, there is ID. If you use that, I think it converts to view ID automatically. So if you wrap anything inside this underscore, it could be automatically translated inside a template, and then Vue could do it.
That's for default templates, but when it comes to like adding a header and setting some value, it doesn't work for that.
Well, but in this case, you wouldn't use that. You would use header like that. So it doesn't matter, right? If you're using a variable like this, it doesn't matter. But if you have a string inside your template and you're too lazy to do anything with it, just drop it like this, and the framework will translate it for you.
How it goes for like add button, which is added automatically on CRUD then?
Well, the add button is added dynamically, so it would just
That has to be converted also then.
add button save. That's what we're doing, right? Save. So this will be automatically translated. So if we go with this solution, number 2, translate during init or get caption. Yeah, so it's either this, what Gaurav you suggested, or this, what Francesca suggested.
So why not be on line number 20 underscore save default, whatever you want to translate, so then nothing is to be done on ATK.
Like this.
Underscore function save. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's what I was proposing. Is when ATK translates only strings which are hard-coded in ATK namespace. So it'd be form app like that, and then you can redefine this method. That's one approach, right? The other, but if we use this and someone develops application which is entirely in English, if they want to add a new language, they will have to go through the whole source of their application and manually wrap all the labels inside this code, which is a lot of work.
Even in case of template, he has to go and wrap all the things in the template then.
That's right, yes. Template is either way, yeah, because I mean, we agreed that we need to provide translation for all the strings in ATK.
But Ramens?
Yes.
Question: how is this going to work with template? So because I didn't use get text for a long time, but what I remember is when you were running it, it was picking up all the call to this to that special method and gave you the the translation, but not the translation, but the thing to translate.
I don't know. Do you guys remember in old ATK we used to have this? So could define ref equals, and you could wrap your page inside this magic tag, and it would be automatically replaced by index PHP or .html, whatever. But yeah, with all the arguments. So this is kind of like a magic tag, which if you use it inside the template, it will automatically replace it on your behalf. So my idea is that template engine should automatically translate a string wrapped in this, right? So this would be like a magic tag again, and you put any string in there, it will get translated. Alain, does it answer your question?
Line number 20 is line number 19 is 18 now. It's okay.
Yeah.
So my question is, how is
Yeah,
it?
for ATK it can work. ATK it can work.
Alain, sorry, what was your question?
So how is it going to be picked up by get text or whatever?
Okay, so once again, yeah. So when template engine loads the template, it will automatically look for the tags named underscore, and it will take the contents of this and it will execute this method here, which will be implemented using getText. So it will return.
What I mean is from what I remember, correct me if I'm wrong, but getText generate a file, right, with all the strings to translate.
Yeah, well, that's like, yeah, you can compile the file, you define the file, you compile the file. It's
So
but
is it going to be able to pick up from template also, or
no. So the way how getText works, you define strings in English, and for each of those strings, you have a translation into multiple different languages.
Okay.
So
but those strings were picked up automatically, right?
yeah, no.
Can get and create PO, but you want to use get text the extension or Scarotero, the repository I found?
So I don't remember the actual workings, like the specifics how it works, but you define file like this, and you have like maybe hundreds or thousands of different strings in this file, and then you compile it, converts it into a binary version, and index that. So when you later execute a function hello like this, it returns.
Yeah, this I understand. The thing is, from what I understood when I used it, it was looking at this. I think getText was looking at the all function calls and pick up the string automatically to be translated. So
Well, nothing happens automatically, right? So when you use getText extension, nothing happens automatically. So you need to call either this method or this method, depending on.
I know to translate, but to pick up the words to be translated, right? This was done automatically.
No.
What we can do with ATK, we will provide the basic translation file which can convert welcome to my add-on as it is in the English, and you can add your language is there.
All right.
So everything which comes default in ATK, you will be having one translation file. Then you have to just duplicate this file and put your own versions of that things equivalent. And other things you can add by your own.
Okay.
Yeah. So you kind of extend, you collect all the files from dependencies, and then you can add your own.
Okay.
So line number 17 is already with ATK with translated file kind of.
Yeah, we can make. I mean, it will not work right now, but we can make pull request to enable this functionality, and all the other things. So I think this is the checklist which we need to do, right? So add the method, create a translate file for ATK, provide the way how add-ons can supply extra translations, and also extend the template engine. Now, the last thing, solution if we choose to go with solution 1 or solution number 2, we will also need to call up we would need to automatically call the method on captions, titles, and everything else. But if we decide to go with solution 1, then we don't need this. This is not needed.
Then user will do it by themselves.
Yeah, then we will do like line number 21. But if we go with solution number 2, you don't need this because the label of the button will be automatically translated.
In either case, we need that app underscore function because the things which are like,
yes,
let's say, in either case we require that function.
Yeah, that's needed in both functions. All right. So these are all the tasks. We need to make a decision. Solution number 1. We have a lot of people here. You understand the implications. Should we vote? Solution 1, solution 2. Should it be magic or should it be? Probably, I'm kind of rethinking. I'm not decided myself. But if we think about ATK, ATK is there are different frameworks. Some of them are very specific and minimalistic. I think ATK does a lot of things practically, so that user have to write less code. And probably, if we say ATK way, it would be solution 2, right? But if you ask me, I would say solution 1 because I'm lazy.
So for me, it's a mix of both. Solution 2 you can go with things, but you have to keep solution 1 up also. In either case.
No, you can't go with 2 because the question is which of the second 2 lines will work. So okay, let's do this. Solution number 1 is this. You have to write like that. Solution number 2, you have to write like this.
Roman, in my case, solution number 2, let's say it's not the save button, and I write, let's say, I add text on a view, hello world.
So tell me about the button.
Obviously, line number 8, solution 2 for the button. But I'm thinking about the manual things that will be also needed.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I'm not saying no. But for the buttons, yeah. So that's the big question because now I'm not sure. So Gaurav is saying.
Solution 2. Solution 2.
Yeah, solution 2. Magic buttons. Yeah. Francesco.
With the availability of
on solution 2, which I propose.
Solution 2, yes. But are you fine even if we store caption with in a translated way? So the init would. So init, yeah. So that's there are like 2. I have to rename them. This is like 2. Okay, I don't know what this is. So there are 2 options for solution 2. The first one is if init translate, should init automatically translate, and the second one is caption to hold English version, and then get caption will translate on the fly. So there are. You proposed when the get caption is when only for display. If you access the caption property, it will remain in English. Gaurav said. Gaurav. I think that if we have to go with it, I probably would also be here because it's just less code we have to refactor. Philip, you're not sure?
Yeah, as I said, I might have an opinion when I really start thinking about it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not a proper
Okay, cool.
decision I would make now.
Alain, what do you think?
I'm a bit like Philip, so I'm not really sure, but I think solution 2 sounds a nicer solution.
Yeah.
Less work, but I'm not sure if it's feasible without solution 1.
I think there is only one problem.
Yes.
Solution one will always be there.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah.
Where the ATK data point from translation if there is not an app. We check if there is an app every time we call a caption, but caption is used only in
Oh,
UI.
yes.
Yes, no problem.
So we have persistence, and all these classes they implement app scope thread, which is they pass the app parameter, and I think if app is not set, then we could just return the same, do nothing pretty much, do nothing, and then it automatically becomes solution number 1. So yeah, in a way you have both. Yeah, so if the app is not defined, then no magic is happening.
No, like now, I mean, if there is nothing, is something that I don't need to change. If I switch on translation, I can start translating things in the UI.
Okay, here is another question, right? So sometimes in translation you have a string. Let's think. Let's say I want to say like 25 items, right? So I want to display this text in different language, but because there is a number, I want, first of all, in some languages it could be like item count 25. It could be in a different place. So we need a way to kind of specify argument here. I don't know how it's happening. And then need to items, and also this could be a plural or like singular and plural. So it's like items.
There is already definition for this in getText. Practically, you don't pass only the phrase, the string to be translated. You pass first argument string and second argument an array of values that is building the string.
Mhm.
I mean, it can be variable in the string to be translated. For example, in grid, like you show, and probably the underscore parenthesis method must be a variadic parameter, not a normal parameter, because can contain much more than one argument.
Okay, but just for simplicity, let's just do this. So my question here, right? So if we would go with solution number 1, then this is possible, right? So you do like app and call the parameter in here, and you have this translated for you. That works quite well. But if it's a solution number 2 where it's magical, what do you pass as a parameter then? Because if you write delete 25 items, it will already be translated, so you technically can start putting things like that.
Yes.
But then how do you pass the parameters?
Yes. But where can be this? Let's speak about this. Where we have this? We can call in a situation that are not standard. We can call directly and back to solution 1, like you said before.
Yes, but in this case, if you type this text with the solution number 2, it gets called twice. So the first time it gets called here, but then ATK calls it once again because you're specifying the argument, which is a caption.
On this, you are right.
Or what we could do is you do maybe like that. So if you pass a single argument, it will get localized, which is like a short version. But if you pass the parameter like this and explicitly set it to caption, then it will not be automatically localized. So you could do your magic here. You could also do that. Gora, what do you think?
Thinking.
And by the way,
Translation return an object, so that it's an object, and before we are writing it somewhere, the second translation doesn't. So the question is the second translation. It doesn't. It must not get called.
we probably can. I think it's gonna be a little bit. Yeah, we shouldn't do anything with strings anyway, right? Apart from placing them into the template. And the template will probably execute obj. So as long as this returns something useful, very good.
So when a translation returns something, it returns some object of particular type, and it's too distinct, just returns the object, and the default translation can see if this is the instance of that particular object. You don't do anything now. Just pass it. Yeah, if argument is instance of translate, ATK translate, just pass. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, and then this can be implemented transparently. Also, I wanted to say, so if the situation happens where you use that and it's solution number 2, then the first time it's called, it will be translated, but the second time it will try to translate, but it will have a miss. So there is no string like that. So even if we don't have this objects here, it will just because it doesn't have translation, it will display as is. So it's not like you can double translate. So it's still kind of okay.
Agree. That also agree. But if you do this app kind of things, function and instance of and class-based things, we will have more control over the translations. If the translation itself can be anything, we define the translation class.
Yeah, I think we shouldn't because this can be done by the translation library. So if you use a different translation technique, then this might be different. The arguments might be different. Maybe the whole thing is different. But it's we can have an article saying that you can do this, and it's quite easy, right? It's not like you have to write like 100 lines of code. It's really simple.
If we want to use any other library, that's a separate issue. But it has to be ATK. We should give the power to the user to override this class also, so that he can do anything with it.
Well, there you go. So you see, you just create a class. It actually doesn't have you don't need any methods inside this class. You just need to there needs to be a class. So that's it.
That's it. That's it. So you can override it, and you can use the any other libraries function and just pass it.
Okay. So we're still staying on solution number 2, and we are allowing users to do the double translation, and then if it bothers someone, then they can always do the object solution.
Yeah, that's it. So it's always a solution 1 and 2 both.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
It has to be both.
Okay. Okay. I think that's all clear then. So let's put this. And
So now we have just one solution.
yeah, so we just solution number 2. Cool. All right, so that I think that's decided.
But Philip or Francisco, I think Philip was having a very valid question. Let's say someone is not using the data, the UI, and still the data needs to be translated somehow. So it should be this facility should be available to typecast also.
Okay, but it will pass always in an app. They need to implement something that should be recognized as an app or something.
So why not it be in core kind of functionality, some trait, simple trait. You can use it in translation that typecast also there.
You mean add a trait to the things that you want to translate?
Yeah, so that you can add the trait into your model directly that I need translations, and then if you have that method available in the model, the typecast does the translation directly.
You mean added use translate trait and in the model will be translate method.
So what I propose, let's say you have a trait and the trait is included in your model which you want to get translated every time. Let's say you are not using UI in any case. So the typecast will see that if we have that particular method like underscore method exists because of the trait. If it has a method, you just pass your every field or data coming through that function.
That kind of makes sense. So you have a persistence, UI persistence, and when it wants to display a number, it adds euro sign in front of it. But if it wants to display a string, it can try and translate that.
So it has to be a trait in the core which provides the function which even app can use, even a model can use.
But the question here is where is Philip storing translations? Because if he has an English in a database and then he wants to translate using the translation library, then what you suggest will work. But if he wants to store multiple translations in a database, like for example field for English, German, and so on, then I think different approach is needed.
Oh, in that case, like what we are doing even right now, that's multilingual application we are also working. So that's a custom approach we have worked with. I think ATK has nothing to do with that thing.
It could be a type. It could be like a multilingual string, which provides you multiple. So you could write it in different languages, and then it stores it as some sort of array or like a JSON.
JSON, yeah, JSON is a good idea, but JSON is not supported by then we'll have like only 5.7 plus and MariaDB 10.2 plus only then.
No, we store JSON as is, so ATK doesn't use the JSON notation, just as a
Well,
JSON.
in that case, the actual field will get only be extracted when after load is done and you do some PHP on that. It will not be getted by the like query running and expressions and it won't work then. So does that make sense? Let's say I want to search something in my language, but it's a JSON. I can't talk from this search then.
Something like that.
Is UI using somewhere has many names as a caption? I don't think so.
Mastercard is using that. I think reference.
And even these links are protected fields. I just wanted to get it once and I couldn't. Why it's protected? I don't know.
One is for sure, but probably
This system. There is a caption.
But when it get used, has many exception has never been used anywhere.
Master CRUD, well, has one, it appears as a label, so it is used there. for the master CRUD, when you define the tabs here, for example, you have a client, and client has many invoices, and the label invoices is going here on the tab. There is an option to override that, but if that would be automatically translated, that would be nice.
Is MasterCard managed right now? It's working.
What?
Is MasterCard working?
Yeah, it's working really well. We're using it all the time.
I never tried with it.
Yeah, there's no. Okay, so it extends reference. Reference doesn't have the caption, but probably we should add the caption here. Well, it can be cleaned up. We can add more use cases here, which should be covered. So I can finish this issue later after the call, and then if any of you guys want to implement the issue and submit a pull request, that would be great. So we at least would know how it needs to be done. Right. Okay. Looking at the UI. So, okay. Looks like data doesn't have the label, but UI has a label here, which says agenda, Hangout agenda. So I'll add the label for the data, and I think you should have permissions to simply go and find the issue which needs to be discussed, and then we can add the label for Hangout again, and then next week we can discuss it. Okay, because there are lots of issues, and then since we discussed this today, we can remove that. Yeah. Ooh, that ATK Weekly. All right, I don't have anything else. Anything? Do you guys want to discuss anything else?
Well, I'm somewhere. I have parked my car in the side just for the meeting, so I have no.
Oh, good. All right, so let's meet next week.
Sorry, my microphone was off actually. You labeled a pull request I did yesterday with a Hangout agenda to in UI. It was drop down.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I looked at the issues, but I didn't look at the pull request. So, there we go. Actually, there are two. Right, so that's yours, right?
Yeah.
Oh yes, and the issue here was that we used to have a class called dropdown. Let me open it here. But then we changed it. Alain rebuilt it and called it lookup.
Well, that was the autocomplete. It was not a drop down.
What, this?
Exactly.
I thought we changed to lookup.
It is lookup.
So I have 3 classes now. What the hell? Okay, autocomplete, lookup, clearly more lines.
Yeah, I look up because we decide to add filter to autocomplete, so
And we have drop.
we didn't want to mess with the actual autocomplete implementation when we did it.
So the autocomplete is obsolete.
So just for understanding, if you use lookup without any filters, it's just like the autocomplete, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, then we can definitely drop autocomplete if it's lookup does exactly the same and more if you want.
So what does drop down do?
Just display a drop down.
It is really simple. Yeah, so if that's the case, we're probably keeping drop down, and I don't mind with this. You know, I just my head wasn't working, so I wrote some garbage in there.
So Philip, what we want to achieve from this custom? Like,
Well, actually, it's two things. One was Romans pointed out that on a normal drop down, you don't, when you have a model set, you don't need to load the whole model like all fields, but only the ID field and the title field, because that's the only values the drop down's taking. So this is one of the two things that implements. The other one is, at the moment, it's quite difficult altering drop down display. Like, yeah, let's say you want to add another field to the title, maybe only on certain conditions, just put some logic in there, or add an icon. That was actually the main reason. Add an icon when using it with a model. You could only add an icon to the drop down when you were using it with a preset values property, which is an array of the values. But if you were using it with a model, there was no chance to to add an icon. And so this is what I basically implemented. In a way, I like it, but I don't know if that's really ATK style. Before, the whole drop-down menu, so all of the drop-down options were rendered by the app get tag function, and an array was passed to it with a quite bit of HTML in there. And I switched to using a sub template, which is also defined in dropdown.html, which I personally like better, because then there's no HTML hard coded in the PHP file. And in case you really want to extend dropdown to use some really complex HTML for each dropdown item, I think it's easier, because you don't have to define that difficult, complex HTML within the PHP code, but just add your own custom template and use it.
Okay.
it sounds useful. I've never come through this situation so far, but sounds useful.
Because you're not using drop down.
Yeah, actually, I do have I did it because I have a real life example for it.
Okay.
Never come through this situation before.
So if you like, I can show you why or what I
Now, guys, let's just
use this for.
Oh yeah. You mean you can demonstrate, sure.
If you like, let me just see if it works.
And we can add some screenshots as well.
Yeah, it works. Okay, so I'll share my screen.
Please.
So, okay.
No swearing.
Maybe you see my screen.
Yeah, we see now.
Okay.
We're seeing you.
We see double screen.
Yeah. Oh damn it! I unplugged this one, but It seems. Then let me stop sharing and I'll just share Firefox. Where is it? Okay, now you should see Firefox.
Yay.
Do you? Do you also see switching the tab?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is about actually that's a dropdown where I've been using it. It's just if some property, in this case is called value, is bigger than 0, add this to the caption. If not, not. Like in the model, the value property of this one here is 0, so it's not added. In this here, it's a float 2.99, so it's added. And the code for doing it, okay, because I'm not sharing my screen, you won't see my code. It's stupid. Yeah, it's just a simple callback which has it gets the each record the callback, and you can just
Yeah.
define
I can. We can understand. I think. You just.
By using a sub model which extends your existing model and which returns the only things which has some value, and
So,
if it is having, you can do that thing also. It's like just an option.
pardon?
You could do the model you are setting on the drop down. You could extend that model. You can
Yeah.
put some conditions on the model that only values which you could do that also directly. So callback is like an extra effort
So you mean
for this
so you
thing.
mean like do it on data level, like get overriding get caption or what?
So it's just the caption you are changing, or it's just the values which are having more. Yeah, you can do it on data level also. So you can create an expression like what I suggest. You extend your model. You change the title field with an expression which gets something which is having 0 value, return something out, or other way around, and you put some conditions what you want to display it, and just put that model in the data.
But he might not necessarily have the model, and then it might be it might
If
not
he's not
be
having a model, then
yeah
if he's
the
not having a model, then values can directly be put like what he is doing.
he also can use HTML here with the callback, but you can't do it with on the model level as well. So I think there are a lot of different valuable
Pull
things.
request is good. Pull request is good. I was just trying to figure out like why he didn't opt that approach while it was easier to maintain on the data level. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. Also, I'm thinking, if let's say you're building your own custom component, for example, which allows you to select country, and you want to have maybe flags in there. This makes it easier to implement, or something like more advanced.
Right. Yeah, this is good pull request.
But look, Gaurav, I requested review from you, so if you want to look at that, tell me what you think.
Yeah, sure. I might have missed that. I just saw my name in the
Yeah,
review.
I approved.
Waiting.
I approved it. I think it's good.
Yeah, well, I'll definitely add some documentation. I wanted to wait what you think about it. If you like it or not, if it's ATK way or not, but then I'll definitely put, at the moment I do have some examples, a lot of examples actually in the source code. Maybe I'll move some of them to documentation and add some screenshots.
So Philip, I request you one thing because I and you all guys are also feeling like demos. If we can for some documentation, if we can add some couple of demo files in the demos folder in UI.
Yeah, I noted that as well.
Good idea, yeah.
So I
Okay,
was
so I'll add
a suggestion.
documentation and demos.
And Philip, I also send you a link to where we have drop-down documentation, which is just as drop-down. There's nothing else in there, but you can put a couple of examples in there. So
Yep, I will.
just so when I'm reviewing it later, I can maybe write more text about it. I'm going to present my screen. There is one other remaining issue, and yeah, this one I really wanted your feedback. So here's the issue, right? About the namespaces, and it's goes back all the way. So ATK data doesn't do this crap, but in ATK UI we have this syntax where it could do, this add form, right?
Yes.
And technically, this is a string. Now you can also write this add new form. And in this case, we are adding an object, which is like, a good way. I myself, I start preferring this method, but when you teach people ATK, they prefer this method because it's just, simpler, more readable.
Can be, I see, sorry if I interrupt you,
No.
but I see that is special meta in PHP Storm that can be translated for IntelliSense with the first and the second one. The problem is when you load the first argument as an array, there can be used as
I see, yeah.
IntelliSense.
Yeah, well, I mean, people who write that, they're not usually using PHP Storm. They don't care about it. But the way how I use now, I'm saying form equals that, and then form add field. So this works for me, and I like this syntax. It looks okay, so I'm keeping like it. The question is here, right? So we have this syntax, and we probably should keep it. Now inside here, what about if I want to do like ATK4 UI form, or maybe ATK4 master CRUD, right? I can technically do that, and if there is a trailing slash in front, we know that this is a namespace, and it works perfectly. But
Yeah, it's working.
so but at the same time, if I do something without no slash in front, then it will convert it by prepending ATK4 UI. And there is no other namespace. It's just this namespace, and this is like the universal way of adding things, and just handy for new users. The problem starts appearing if you do this add master CRUD class and use ATK4 K4. Now this is a legal PHP syntax. You are allowed to do this, and then this is kind of imported, and you reference the class like that. But what's actually going to happen here? It will use ATK4 master CRUD. It will use it like this, but there is no backslash at the beginning.
Yeah.
No backslash. So in a way, this.
This really surprised me that this notation doesn't put the slash in front.
Yeah, but it doesn't, and as a result, what happens is we're translating by prepending ATK UI, and the whole thing breaks.
Yep.
So I want that this would also work. So the way how I tried to solve this is by when normalize class name is called, we're checking whether the namespace in the class will exist at all, and if it does, then we will convert.
And I start writing.
Yeah. Send me Rasmus. Oh.
So Roman, the class gets the fully qualified name, I guess. Why it's returning the ATK? It should return the fully qualified name.
What?
This double colon class, it should return the fully qualified name.
Yeah, it returns this. This is how PHP works. So when you, this is like in PHP syntax, this is identical to string.
Yep. what if I forgot the function name, but if it checks if there's a backslash in there at all. So if no backslash is in there at all, prepend backslash ATK4/UI. If there's any backslash in there but no leading backslash, then just add a leading backslash to it.
Okay. There we go. So something like that, right? So datetime is in a, this is in a global namespace. It will be passed as datetime. So it will, we will prepend that. Will not work.
It will not work either. Yep. So forget my solution.
Yeah, but add-ons. I mean, if I put model in another namespace.
Well, but models, they typically will have a namespace. So it's just, you know, this is just one example. Datetime doesn't have namespace. There's no, maybe you can define some of your classes that don't have namespace. So you do like this. And then you're in trouble. So yeah, probably that's more dangerous. So if you just define a class and use that.
Wait. All my wall of text started because you because you put that code that is correct, but gives some error. Just because in the documentation you explain that if we put a single backslash, PHP doesn't recognize and became and will be deleted. And we have yes, and the problem is that there are two examples in the repository of demos of UI that have the inverted backslash. I don't remember the name, and if my memory is not crazy, must be in callback demo. JS callback or something like this.
But yeah, you can see the error here. So we're specifying form field backslash autocomplete, which has a backslash, and therefore we're not prepending ATK UI, and that's why.
Yes, but no, wait. That line. Sorry, what line was that? I have just defined the inverse in the demo. And
379.
I will find.
Roman,
Hmm?
why we can't do this thing like when the my class colon class, if it exists, we just can use it. We don't prepend or append anything.
Well,
Just can check it.
yeah, that's what I'm doing here, right?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Let me hide this. Choose the. Okay, if class exists without additional key names, use it. If not, but class. Well, that's what I'm trying to do here, right? So I'm saying if class exists with a namespace of the ATK.
No, no, it's not about underscore namespace. Namespace takes the ATK default, but I am proposing just class exists, whatever is provided.
But it might not exist, okay? It might the autoloader will start doing it. The Joe like looking for things. So I'm not sure. There are a few solutions. So for example, we could when you're doing the add, we could provide a dictionary which says, okay, if you specify form, what they actually mean is ATK. So let me show you.
No, no, that's not good. But why don't simply say class exists, whatever is provided? If not, then underscore namespace provided. No, no, this is not good. Like I can have my own class.
Yeah, then specify the full the class. So specify it in this way. If you have your own class, then we're good.
And where you are planning to put this if class is equal to on the add function.
Yeah, so that's for example in add, but there is also set layout or set form layout.
No, but then it's interconnected things. The data must not know about UI must not know about anything.
No, that can be work around, but it's just there are multiple places. So for example, in this demo here forum, let's look at the forum section. So when it creates those layouts, like it uses sublayout generic, but that transforms into a class within namespace.
Because it's between form to form.
So this
And can tools for UI as well as data as well as DSQL or any other model or anything.
okay. So what are our options here?
And you are right. If you do like whatever person is added, if that class exists, just do it. If not, dictionary is not a good way.
So that's one way. Second, if class exists, use
Whatever
it.
provided.
Try.
Yeah, that's what I just kind of posted in the chat here.
Yeah, to be honest, now looking at the error here, in here, so it looks like this. It's not the same error. So this is just when we have a prefix. So in the form section we specify generic without the backslashes, but the backslashes were added automatically because it's a third parameter to normalize. And then for some reason it didn't prepend with ATK UI. But I can't. It went here. It says class exist, two backslashes, ATK UI backslash form layout section generic, and for some reason didn't find this class. Maybe it didn't exist. So it went out and returned here. It sounds like a different problem there. It's like class exists doesn't see the class, which I can probably check and find out why this specific error is appearing. But I just wanted to discuss the principle of how to solve strings like this.
Roman,
Yeah.
if you take the daytime example, right?
Yeah.
Instead of daytime time,
Yeah.
if you put a backslash in front of daytime, is it still going to work?
I mean here.
No, when it translates, right? So if there's no backslash, you add one.
Within a string.
No, you don't control it. You just the method add
Yeah,
will
when
receive
you
it.
normalize, you add a backslash. If it doesn't have any backslash, you normalize it by
The
adding one.
you have no control. I mean, either you write this or you write this.
No,
The
if you
method
put a
add
back,
will get.
if you
About
put a back, yeah, here.
when you create the object, you say new date time with a backslash in front of it. It doesn't work.
If you pass an object is fine. Yeah, it's only when you pass a class. So I don't know if this will change anything, but I'm
No,
assuming
it won't.
it won't. Yeah, because this is like a unified way of how the class converts. So you can define the scope, but it will normalize it into this.
I guess this is not a big issue to think a lot right now. There are too many workarounds. There are.
So anyway, Gora, ways to solve. Number 2 or number 1? Dictionary or I think 2. Like my
Yeah.
Yeah, because the dictionary we keep adding later on. Whenever we add a class, we have to try and update that if else condition. That's not a good idea.
okay. All right, fine. So that's it.
Yeah. Also, solution 2 doesn't add any additional work whenever you add something new. You don't need to keep a dictionary.
Yeah.
If it has some yeah, because I think it doesn't, because with the new PHP versions they kind of preload all the classes anyway.
So anyway, JID is coming up in PHP 8.
Yes, PHP.
But I do some tests. Is something really, 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 really small. The performance issue, because I investigate deeply, and I see that classes like interfaces are compared by name, char by char. If more the namespace plus class is long, is much longer the time to check it until if given error on comparison. But it's something like really, 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 really small time.
Oh, is it so? I didn't know that.
I find it, and I try. If you see, I do a performance check just to see if this is correct. And if you see longer namespace, even if are erroneous, they are much longer to check. But
So Roman is
it's
now checking how you got that pro badge.
Yeah, I'm not pro.
So Philip, can you guide us how you got that pro badge?
Pardon?
So Roman is trying to get that pro badge you have on your profile.
Sorry, I was off for like 1 minute. So it's about GitHub.com badges or what?
Yeah. So Roman is.
Yeah, you have the pro badge.
Wow.
You didn't know.
Where the hell did I get that from?
I don't know. Are you paying for GitHub?
Yes, I do.
we are paying. Probably
I see.
I have two, some private repository.
I have organization. I pay for organization. It doesn't give me a pro.
Yeah.
This is why you can use Code Climate. Code Climate only works with an organization GitHub account, not with the $7 per month account. kind of sucks.
Yeah, I'm on some legacy account, by the way, with this. So if I leave it, so I'm allowed to have 20 repositories and as many users as I want.
Okay, so I googled it, how to get a pro on GitHub, and I got some nice answers here. Anyway, I need to move, guys.
Make a petition on change.org. Someday will kill us.
So you have to subscribe to new pro plan.
Anyway, so I think that's it for today. I'll stop the video. You can keep talking.
Nice meeting.